Hello, everybody, and welcome to this latest in the ValuesJam guest session series. And Larissa, brilliant to have you here. And to start with, please tell everybody who you are and about your great work.
Thank you. Good morning, Alan. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Larisa Halilovic, and I'm someone who helps leaders lead people and make decisions. And what that means in practice, I work as a trainer, as an executive coach. Also, I work as a keynote speaker. But in addition to this, I'm really lucky that I get to lead teams myself. So I combine the theory of leadership and also the practice of leadership in all I do. And I'm dialing in from Sarajevo, Bosnia and Herzegovina, for those who are interested in locations with a lot of history and a lot of presence as well.
And how can people get in touch with you, Larissa?
LinkedIn is the best way, yes.
Okay. And I have to share that you've just raised something that brings back sad memories for me from the weekend because your team beat my Welsh team to go through to the final of the World Cup qualifiers, right? So I went to the match and not the result I wanted. But maybe we shouldn't talk more about that.
I'm really sorry for you, but for us, this was a major achievement. And actually, several members of my family were there too. So, Alan, it's as if I know you in person. I'm sorry, but for us, this was super important. I'm sure you'll do better next time.
So let's choose a card. So I'm gonna give these cards a bit of a shuffle,
Okay,
and while I'm doing that, just have a think about how many piles you would like me to lay out in front of me.
let's do five.
Five.
Mhm.
Well, I just want to share with you that this is my second values jam today.
Okay,
And the previous one, they asked for five piles as well.
interesting.
Um, and I'll maybe share with you in a minute which card we chose, irrespective of what we choose here. So I've got pile one on my left, pile five on my right. So which number pile would you like?
Two.
Two. And we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16 cards here. So which number between 1 and 16 would you like?
Nine.
Number 9. Okay, so this is the card that you've chosen.
Oh, wonderful.
And we should be grateful that you've chosen this card, right?
Yes, absolutely. And
Now,
interestingly, I was writing a report on the mentorship work I've done over the past few months with women in cybersecurity. And one of the topics we covered was using gratitude as a tool and as a resource and as a way of motivating oneself. So I'm very grateful to have chosen gratitude.
yeah, well, you mentioned these connections, and I don't quite know how to deal with this because my rational brain says, this cannot be true because these cards are chosen at random. But this morning we chose the card enjoyment. And I mentioned to the person that I was having the values jam with that, and I haven't done this work yet, but it seems that some cards come up more regularly than others, even though that's not scientifically rational, right? And enjoyment is one of my core values. And it's like, it's so weird that these things happen. And probably the most extreme example was a values jam with somebody, and I drew the card, which was protection of the environment. And the lady said, "Did you just play a trick on me?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, last night when I was thinking about this session, I was thinking, I wonder if protection of the environment will come up." And it's like, what's going on there?
Amazing. Amazing. And interestingly, while I was brushing my teeth this morning, I was pondering on what might come up. And apart from values in general, which I have worked with for the past 20 years, I thought how important it is to have values such as joy. Um, included. And it's very interesting that you had enjoyment as a as a correlation of joy this morning in your session. Amazing, amazing.
So the first question I have for us is,
Mhm.
what does gratitude mean? And then there's a follow-up question, which is a bit more for the imagination, which is, what does gratitude look, feel, and sound like? So choose either the more technical answer first or the more imaginative, whichever you prefer.
Well, let's go with the more imaginative. So for me, gratitude feels warm, it feels fuzzy, it feels like something feeding our soul. And it looks like, I suppose I would see it as a big hug, uh, hug for ourselves, hug for our soul. But also it could look like the most favorite sweet, if you're into sweets, or the favorite meal, or the favorite person saying something nice to you. Um, for me, it would smell like flowers. I'm not sure which exact flower, but it would definitely smell like flowers, and maybe a mix of forest as well, and a little bit of sea. And did you say what it felt like on the touch, or should we
I
not?
didn't, but if you'd like to share, do.
So it would be very soft and almost like cotton clouds. Gratitude, yes. And what did I forget? And what it
No, I mean that.
sounded like, it would sound like soft whispering, or maybe even the sound of leaves and sea, maybe. Yeah.
What a great start. So I've got some that are similar to yours and others that are different to yours. So if we start with that sound, I can just hear the word thank you. But in addition to the word, it's said in a very sincere way. And actually, I can feel eye contact with it. So it's not just the sound on its own, it's this real sense of connection. Um, Actually, you've just reminded me, we went to a local restaurant on Saturday night, Somalian restaurant, and we said it was fantastic. And we said goodbye to the guys that were working there. And one of them just put his hand across his chest, and it felt really good, rather than, oh, thanks very much, bye. It felt really personal. And for the feeling, kind of related to that, when I think of gratitude, I can feel a physical sensation of my heart getting bigger, it, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Um, the smell, you said flowers. I immediately thought of either bacon or freshly baked bread. Maybe both together, actually. um, and then images for gratitude. Um, it's a kind of it's a facial expression. Um, I can't really describe how it looks physically because when you look at it, you just know that somebody is really appreciative. So it's kind of modest, understated, with the eyes saying thank you.
Yes.
Um,
I think eyes are the key here, because sometimes I feel when people truly feel gratitude, our eyes light up and they shine. It's like the soul speaking from within.
yeah. And so let's move to the more technical one then of what does gratitude mean?
Um, it's kind of difficult to define, but I would say it's the honest meaning and saying of thank you for everything that we are, that is, that has happened. And for me, this comes from a very practical point of view. Now, what you may or may not know is that I grew up in Sarajevo, and when I was a child, there was a war. and aggression. And I lived here for 4 years of the war, and then I left as a refugee. And for someone with that sort of experience, uh, unless you learn to develop gratitude, you can stay crippled for the rest of your life. But gratitude for me is something you develop to really appreciate every moment, every little thing that the life gives you, both good and not good, both pleasant and not pleasant, as a gift and as a learning experience. So this is exactly the reason why I now teach gratitude, amongst other things, as a tool for people to be able to motivate themselves and to be able to uh, get the positive energy from within rather than focusing on all the things that seem as wrong.
Hmm. It's an interesting notion, this, because um, we tend to talk in judgmental terms about things happening to us. We say, "Oh, that was good," or "That was bad," and I don't know why, but probably over the last, I don't know, between 5 and 10 years, maybe, I've started not really to think like that very, very much. And it sounds, I challenge myself sometimes because it sounds a bit trite to be saying, oh, well, if something not so good happens, you can just put it down to a learning experience or whatever. Um, but maybe it's the things that happen to me are not really very bad. So it's kind of easy to do that. Um, but I find that it's a better use of energy just to focus on what you're going to do next rather than get caught up in the, oh, isn't this terrible what's happening right now? But like I say, it's maybe easy when the situations are probably quite moderate or mild. And it wouldn't have been so easy for somebody like you in the situation that you describe.
Yes, and I think when you go through really hardcore traumatic experiences, which, as you know, so many people are currently
Yeah.
going through in this world, you can go one way and simply fall into despair. The other way is to literally be grateful for the fact that you are still alive, if you are, for having all the body parts intact, for waking up this morning. If you have a home to be in, this is definitely something to be grateful for. Even little things like having a cup of tea, because some people really do not. And it's a matter of practicing and building resilience. In one of your previous sessions, which I watched yesterday with Barbara Ann, I believe, you
Yeah.
talked about the importance of building resilience and not pretending like everything is fantastic, but
Mm.
accepting it as it is and then finding a way to move on. This is, for me, gratitude really helped build resilience, and it helped move forward, but also it helps on daily basis with my clients. And when they develop awareness of the power of gratitude, then the whole mindset shifts. Because we can choose, I could be choosing to tell you about all the horrible things at the moment, or I could choose to focus on the things that I'm grateful for, which may help me actually move forward.
Mm. And on that, I find it useful sometimes to be grateful for things that otherwise can easily be taken for granted. So, for instance, again, this might seem a bit weird, but when our bins get collected on a Thursday, I don't know why I just do feel grateful because there are some people that live in a situation where that doesn't happen, and it's so easy because it happens regularly and they're very good. It's easy for it to be invisible. So I think there's something about being grateful for those things that otherwise could be overlooked or underappreciated.
Yes, yes. And I mean, even such mundane things, they're definitely a potential source of gratitude. For me, over the past 2 years, being exposed so much to the images of, kids in hardship, in war situations. One of the biggest things I'm grateful for is that my kids are alive and well and near me, you know. Uh, And these things, if you have not experienced anything bad or if you have not seen what's going on, seems like the most normal thing to think about and to take for granted. But for me, it's been a real realization. Even, for instance, some people choose to have or not to have a partner, uh, and to share their home with someone or not. Um, Most recently, we had a loss in the family, which really took us by surprise. It was a young person who passed away just suddenly. And sometimes these things happen, but interestingly, seeing uh, the pain of that loss with the person who is grieving over him, it made me really appreciate and be grateful for the partner I have, even more, we are on one day you are more grateful and another day maybe you get annoyed, things are not always that perfect. But in reality, when I think about it, I've been fortunate enough to meet someone that I really like still for 23 years now. And this is something at the end of the day, it's actually quite special considering that it may not be taken for granted and it may not happen to everyone. So I'm learning to even pause and, look at the little things that we may not bring to our conscious so often.
Mm. And continuing that theme, I remember COVID made me grateful for my well-being much more than I had admitted to myself before. It's I've not really had to seek medical advice very often, and I'm not fit, but I'm not unfit, and so it was kind of nothing to consider really until you realize what it's like if things go wrong, and it did go very badly wrong for so many people at that time. And interestingly enough, I've spoken to a lot of people actually who all of a sudden at that time had the same sort of realization and all of a sudden started to take their health a lot more seriously, but then have admitted subsequently it's tailed off again because of the familiarity that you have with it and then maybe verging on contempt. So I mean, does that resonate with you at all or people that you know?
Absolutely. On two levels. One, for example, with the physical health, I know some people absolutely love exercising. I'm not one of them, but I exercise. And just before we did our session, I told you I couldn't do it earlier. It's because for the past 19 years, I have had a personal trainer, the same person, working with me to make sure that my back is fit and and doing well. And these sorts of things, again, you can say, oh, well, you are disciplined, but it's not a matter of discipline. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to have had the contact with this person who is so well organized and such a professional that we could continue working throughout COVID. We switched from face to face to online, but we had already been working for such a long time that you know the things. And I'm still super grateful to have the opportunity to work with her, but also to be able to afford to pay for training of that sort.
Yeah,
Because not everyone can do that. It's easy
yeah.
to say, oh, yes, you hurt your back, so now you have got someone working with you. But in reality, again, not everyone has that. And going back to what you said about health in general, I actually had a very similar situation, but it was a little bit, I suppose, to an extreme during COVID. And it turned out to be effects of COVID, which I didn't know I had before it was even known that that was COVID. We caught that wave in February 2020. And it was, the beginning without the world knowing it was the beginning. And it ended up really messing up with my health badly. so badly that at one point I had a burnout combined with post-COVID effects. And I remember my heart rate went to 182, my
Wow.
blood pressure went totally berserk. I was a total mess. And prior to that, I had no problems. And there was one point I remember I was in bed, I was 40 at the time, and I was thinking, I just want to wake up alive. And the next day, when I woke up alive, I was so grateful just for the fact that I mean, it sounds so banal, but when you experience something like that, which is out of the ordinary, it really makes you reevaluate. And we as human beings, sometimes we seem to want to compare, which is not helpful, but it's something that keeps driving us. So very often I feel when we get lulled in and when you feel, everything's taken for granted, then you either experience or see something that will give you a bit of a reality check.
Mm,
And again, it's a great opportunity to check in with yourself of all the things you're grateful for.
mm. And I'm just thinking about COVID. So I was in Hong Kong just before it all broke. And when I got back, I had a short business trip to Ireland. And I remember just feeling exhausted in the middle of the afternoon. And I went and got something to eat. And then I went to sleep at about 7 o'clock in the evening because I just felt dreadful. And the next morning, I was kind of okay and then got better. And I'll never know whether it was something to do with COVID or not. But am truly grateful that it didn't turn into something more serious, especially from Hong Kong, where
Mm.
it kind of started around there. And the other thing you talked about waking up and feeling grateful, I saw this was an Indian guy who explained that in the mornings when he wakes up and is getting out of bed, he puts his feet on the floor of which you have to do to get up, right? But then before he does anything else, he just feels his feet on the floor and feels grateful to be waking up for another day. Um, and I'm reminded, I don't do it every day, but I'm reminded of it by this conversation, and it feels like a good thing to do. Um, but maybe, we're too busy to do it every day like he's doing it. Now, we've talked a lot about, and we've had a really positive start to this conversation. So I'm going to challenge us now a little bit. And I'd like to go to the other side of the coin. And maybe you can think of a time where you have noticed a lack of gratitude.
Um, Well, this can be, from my experience, what I immediately think of. It can be something which we feel towards the world and life, but it can also be something we feel about us. Because, sometimes when you are giving, when you are someone who is focused on doing work that helps and that gives, although you don't explicitly expect gratitude in return, you kind of take it for granted that what you do is appreciated. But over the years, I have learned that A, it's not necessary for people to even recognize contributions, and B, if we require gratitude to be expressed, then we are feeding a little animal within ourselves that is actually seeking validations. And this took me a long time and took me, although I'm a qualified psychologist, I don't practice in that specific field. I suppose I apply it in the training work and all the other work I do. But I've worked with my own psychotherapist to help me bring to awareness why is it that we sometimes seek validation through gratitude of others towards us, and are we doing it to get that thank you, Or are we doing it because we actually want to help or give or whatever it is? And it's such a fascinating notion. I don't know if you've had that much.
Yeah, well, maybe you can give me a professional opinion then, because I'm going to share a couple of things with you about my relationship with feedback and gratitude. So first, I say that I don't need validation of what I do. For me, it's a bit like the musician or the artist who creates for themselves, and then if other people choose to like it, then that's great. But if they don't, it doesn't affect them. So that's my kind of starting point. But then I'll add two other pieces of information and then see what you can pick out of it. When I worked in hospitality, I attended a general managers meeting of all of the general managers in the world in New Orleans, and there were about 3,000 people there. And part of the program was an awards program. And my property received the most improved employee opinion survey in the world.
Wow.
And so first the shortlist was announced, and so obviously my name was on it, and the guys either side of me were elbowing me, and this, and I don't think I was paying attention enough because then it was the winner was announced, and somebody had to say, "Hey, it's you. You need to go up to the stage." So I got to the stage, received the award, shook the guy's hand, and I'm heading for the stairs on the other side. But he didn't let go of my hand. And so I kind of stuck there. And he just said to me, "Look out there. Though that's 2,000 plus of your peers recognizing what you have achieved. So just take it in for a second before you leave." And it was an amazing feeling when he guided me to do that. Um, and then the final piece of information is that I'm rubbish at receiving compliments. And I've learned to just say, "Oh, thank you." But it makes me feel really uncomfortable because I've done it because I've tried to do my best, not to please somebody. So there, I've thrown a lot at you. Are you going to pick anything out?
Maybe the last lot, the last bit you said, where you don't feel comfortable receiving compliments. That humbleness is, on one hand, wonderful. On the other hand, I often have to work with people who really cannot take in gratitude, positive feedback, compliments, or anything like this because of the absence of self-confidence or assertiveness. Now, in your case, you don't come across as someone who's lacking confidence, or if you are, you're masking it really well. But it is really interesting to think of the energy we share through words. So if someone is genuinely giving you a compliment, it really, apart from maybe making you feel uncomfortable for a little while, um, it is worthwhile you thinking, why did they say this? And how did you feel underneath all that when they're not there about the thing they complimented you on? With many women I know, if you compliment them, for example, on an outfit, and I only compliment if I really mean it. I will never say something I
Yeah,
don't mean. So if I really appreciate for instance, I like this top, and it's a beautiful color, it's an interesting cut, it's an interesting material. And I say, I really like your top. It's a compliment not only for me, it's a compliment for the designer, for the
yeah,
people involved, and this positive energy, I suppose, that's intertwined with that idea could help you if you let the discomfort away. It could help you really lift yourself up. But if
yeah.
you shy away very quickly and say thank you and run off with a funny look in your face, probably, then you are not really enjoying the power of the words that came through. for you and for whatever else. And in reality, we do put effort into things. And you said, I do it because I tend to do my best. I try to give it my best. But even that, you do it because of, in my experience, because of the underlying value that's driving you.
For
Um,
sure.
and sometimes these compliments are there to help us reassure ourselves with our values and say that's
Hmm.
such a wonderful value to have.
Mm, thank you for that. And there's something also about personal paradigm that comes into play here. And I'm going to share with you a story. So I had a telephone call with the lady that used to do my business books, bookkeeping. And it came up in conversation that she ran. So just to put it in context, then she must have been in her mid 50s. And she just mentioned that she ran at the weekend. And I said, "Oh, how far did you run?" And she said, "Oh, the normal, a marathon." So, so I was, what, a normal, a marathon? And as we got into it, she shared that. So this must have been around about the beginning of the year because I remember her saying that she said, "In March, I'm going to Rome, and that will be my 250th marathon."
Wow.
And that's what I said. I said, "Well, I mean, how do you do that?" And she said, "Well, that is really nothing." And then she said, "And look at you. How do you write books?" And so we had this really weird conversation where she was saying, "Well, I just start running and then 4 hours later I stop. And that's what it is." And I was saying, "Well, I just type up everything that's in my head about a particular topic and then sort it out into a structure, and make it easily accessible. And that's a book."
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
And also this tendency to make our bit less worthy or less important or um, less hard. Because when you said she ran a marathon, I'm in awe. I know some people who run marathons, and I know some people who are really super fit and so good at doing these things. And like yourself, I think, how on earth do you do this? But for them, it's just as admirable to think how you write your book or how I do my talks or
Yeah.
how the people building this massive structure behind me, how they actually keep it standing.
Well, that's this personal perspective thing, isn't it? Because you yourself, for instance, somebody says to you, "I could never speak to a group of people. How do you do that?" But for you, it's like, well, it's I've been doing it for so long, and it's easy for me. So it's understandable, perhaps, that there's not an understanding of the degree of difficulty or whatever it is. And it shouldn't be because we're all different and we've got different skills and talents, right?
Yes, yes, we do. And with this said, I think going back to the comment on compliments, with this in mind, pausing and actually stopping to think, why did this person say, you
Yeah.
know, well done, or this is so amazing, or wow, you have written so many books. Taking a moment to actually praise ourselves rather than running away from it is equally important because time and time again, I find that we forget to be grateful for our talent. I
Yeah.
sometimes even joke because I would say one of my biggest assets is what's in my head. And I say, if there's any way of ensuring that, people insure their homes, some people who are in different industries, they insure their body parts, their legs, their whatever. I sometimes think, it would be so wonderful if I could somehow insure my brain because that's where what I do lives. And it's wonderful when someone tells you, you have done a good job. But like yourself, at first, I used to be really uncomfortable as well. But I have learned, and this is one thing for people watching and listening, to realize that we can learn some of these things. And gratitude as a practice can be learned little by little. And it does not require anything. It does not require you paying money for something. It doesn't require you being in a certain location. It doesn't require equipment. It requires actually, focusing in on little things that you can be grateful for. And
Yep.
similarly with receiving compliments, it takes pausing and sitting in the discomfort and saying, thank you for saying that. And thank you, I also like it. Or yes, it's quite amazing, isn't it? Or whatever else is true for you. Um, but yes, we as humans, we tend to run away sometimes.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't think I tend to run away, but I do feel that I want it to be over. I don't want the other person to feel shortchanged. I really appreciate what they've said, but I'd rather focus on what's next and move forward.
Yes.
And in Values Jam, there's often, see, I just did it there.
Uh-huh.
There's a chance for you to ask your own question about gratitude. So let's do that right now. And either I can respond first, or if you've got the answer immediately, you can respond with the answer to your own question. So ask your own question about gratitude, beginning with who, what, where, when, or how.
Okay. But I'm gonna play a little trick on you. And I will use our conversation from before to form the question. So the question is for you, and it is, what is one piece of feedback that you have received in your career that you are most grateful for?
That I think differently.
Uh-huh. And can you elaborate a little bit? Why are you grateful for that? What has
Uh,
it made you realize?
um, because the value of difference is very valuable in my view. Because if everybody is the same, that's quite dull. And if you can add some difference, then that's got to be a positive thing. And in that context, it was my boss explaining that in the work that we were doing, it was important for us to differentiate ourselves, and that I helped to do that. And actually, still today, that tends to be a key objective, is not only to be excellent and aspire to excellence, but be different so that you're not even able to be compared like for like with something else. What about you?
Um, for me, when it comes to feedback, and I was not grateful at the time, but now I am. It's also from a former colleague and a former boss at one time of my career. This person, it's a woman. She said uh, in one of the performance feedback sessions, and I was very young at the time and hugely ambitious. I thought I knew it all, and I thought I would change the world just like that. I thought the stuff I was doing was really important. It was meaningful, it was important, but from my perspective, it had to be done then and there. And this woman, Claire, said to me, Larissa, you really have high expectations of others and of yourself. And that is so hard for people. And I was really angry at the time. I remember I was like, she doesn't even know me. How can she say something like this? But I'm so grateful for that feedback because now, 22 years later, um, it has remained part of my awareness, and also it has helped me recognize that of myself, but it also has helped me recognize it in people I coach and mentor and people I work with, because there are some people who have very high expectations and standards, and unless these are managed, you can have all sorts of effects. So this is definitely one of the bits of feedback that I'm most grateful for. And maybe I'll send this link to Claire. She may remember and laugh about it now.
And that's an interesting area as well because I find it to be, well, first I'm grateful for high standards. That goes without saying. But sometimes it's challenging to deal with because if people feel that they're not capable of delivering those standards, they might well not want to be involved or give up. And that's in neither party's interest sometimes, and other times it's absolutely in both parties' interests.
Yes,
So
yes.
it's quite a complex area rather than the simple one that it seems on the surface.
It's super complex because for me, as you may have picked up even from this conversation, I have a lot of energy and I also have high standards and expectations. So when I do work, I go all in and I really love it. I only do work that I find interesting, meaningful. I only take on that sort of stuff. And when you have someone like me leading the team, it can be quite motivational and inspiring for
Mhm.
people, but unless I'm super careful, they can get very tired.
Yeah.
This,
I remember running a country club resort, and one of the team members said, Alan, it is so wonderful working for you because we achieve so much, but can't we have a rest sometime and celebrate?
exactly, exactly. And I just remembered maybe 7 years ago, I got to do this exciting project. It was a pilot project and was actually about connecting UK with Western Balkans through technology and digital. And the whole concept of digital cities was just coming up. And I remember it was a specific moment in time, and someone said to me, Larissa, we don't think this is possible. And I love a bit of challenge. So I said, what do you mean it's not possible? Of course it's possible. We'll make it possible. So I wrote a pilot project. I got it approved in the organization I was working with. I got a significant budget to do it. And I got a team. So I thought, right, we're going to do it. Looking back, I mean, these people, they died in the process. It was the best thing ever. We had over 200 individuals involved. We had 22 cities. We had events, connections. It all happened in 6 months. And we were all thriving on this sense of achievement and success and connections and all of that. But by the end of it, people started getting sick. They were working so
Right.
much, and like yourself, I didn't feel like I needed to rest, but not everyone operates that way. So now, with this, with the knowledge I have, I try to first tell myself that yes, it's good to be excited and energetic and do work, but you also need to rest. And when it comes to managing these expectations, it's really important that I sense check them. Because not everyone operates. And like you said, this diversity and difference, it's a beautiful thing. But also it means that you have to check that other people can keep up and that they get you.
Yeah. There's also something maybe you will agree or not with this. It feels like with experience comes a more rounded approach. So, for instance, I remember it early in my career seeing the new menu that was launched in the coffee house restaurant that was somebody else's responsibility. And I spotted a spelling mistake. And I was like, how can somebody do this? Whereas now it happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have similar things. I've even there were times when I wanted to get involved and help with the customer service of a newly set up hotel because clearly that's not how things are done. But then, it takes time, they have to follow their footsteps. You can't be there to save the world for all the things you're doing. But as you say, some things really come with experience and with maturity, and some may change and some may never. I hope the energy that I have and that I'm able to spread with other people, I hope that that still remains, while I'm active in that. But you got to learn to contain yourself as well.
Mm. And with, I think those wise words are actually a good place for us to draw this values jam to a close. And there is one final question, which is, what are you encouraged to do differently about gratitude as a result of this conversation?
Um, I like the way you set this up as a really fun, spontaneous, and not so structured conversation.
Mhm.
And what I may change in the values work that I do is to actually provide and create some space for some of these types of conversations. Because in the values work I do, a lot of the conversations are structured in my head beforehand. So I know what I'm going to ask, and I know the direction I'm guiding people in. And of course, their responses differ. But the way you have done this has been so organic, and it's like a bit of a dance, You asked, I answered, then you contributed, and it worked out beautifully. And it also yielded some really important realizations. So definitely, a thing for me to do differently or to explore is letting go of the structure sometimes and creating space for fluid conversations.
Well, you've got to the real heart of why this Values Jam card game was created, and it was based on a music jam.
Uh-huh.
So in a music jam, nobody says, Larissa, you've only got three strings on your guitar, and nobody tells you what to play. If somebody makes a mistake, nobody calls a halt to proceedings and has an inquisition. You just embrace it, right? And we were thinking, in most of the conversations that we have, unfortunately, you've got one or, well, two or more parties aiming for a certain place, not really listening to the other person, driving their agenda and making sure they get to where they need to get to. And we just thought, wouldn't it be better to have a conversation where there was more listening, more curiosity, more freedom, and no objective, like a music jam? And so that you got it in one there. Mine, I'm going to pause when I receive a compliment and consider why they're saying that and what it is that I did that was so beneficial for them. So thank you very much for giving me that tip. And that's it. We're done. You're a qualified values jammer.
Thank you so much. I'm super grateful for the opportunity to jam with you. And I'm also grateful and kind of shocked in a way how the world connects us. Because for those who don't know, Alan and I never met apart from today. This is our first conversation. So it's fascinating to see how well we resonated and what a wonderful experience this was. Thank you so much, Alan.
Okay, you take care. Bye.
Bye.